Have you ever looked at clay core adapters and wondered just what in the world you could do with them? Well, today I have a few basic ideas for using them to make all sorts of things in your polymer clay work. Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. These are a couple of tools that I looked at for a long time before I finally got them because I wasn't quite sure I understood what they did. I'm actually still not quite sure exactly how they work, but they work great. These are called clay core adapters, and what they do is they make a hole in whatever it is that you're extruding in polymer clay. You can have a hole in the middle, and this is handy in all sorts of ways. Now, I have yet to do a video on extruders for you guys, and I want to. This is the Lucy Clay Check Extruder, kind of one of those luxury tools I got for myself, and it's fantastic. The way the clay core works is that you choose whatever size hole you want. So, for example, here is the 4mm. Then you choose an extruder disc, for example, the 7mm hexagon, and you just put them both in your extruder, just the way you would. Now, this bigger set with the 3.5, 4, and 4.5mm just barely fits in my Lucy Clay extruder. The smaller ones, the 1, 2, and 3mm, fit beautifully. Val over at the Unruly Housewife mentioned that she bought some of these. I'm not sure which set she got, but they didn't fit in her, I think it was the Makin's, the green twist handle extruder. So you might want to do some double checking before you buy these and make sure that they actually do fit with your extruder. The important thing you need to have when you're extruding anything is very freshly conditioned clay. So although I prepared this video last night, I made sure that this morning before I started to demonstrate, I just rolled this clay through the pasta machine a few times just to be sure that it's freshly conditioned and soft. If you're doing it by hand with a twist one, that's going to make it so much easier. And even if you're doing it here with the crank handle, you don't run so much of a risk of the clay cracking around the edges. This is a trick that Ginger Davis Almond suggested, getting like a 1-inch dowel to help push that thing around and also push it out when you're done. All right, so I've got my clay in there. So your disc goes into the front part of your extruder. In my case, for this is a little thing that you clamp on the table, and it just makes it so much easier. So that will go in first. And I found this kind of wants to rest on here. You kind of stick it to the clay and jam it in there. There. And then this is the crank handle. If you are ever tempted to pick up one of those thumb push extruders, don't. They call them thumb breakers. It's got like a little T and a thing for you to do this. Don't do it. It just don't. You will not be happy with the effort that it takes and the pain that it's going to cause and possibly the damage to your hands and your body. Here we go. Now looking at this isn't anything extraordinary to anyone who has used an extruder before. I'll stop there. But what's really cool is that, look, there's a big hole in it. Can you think of all the different things that you could do with this? You could use these as tube beads, just cutting them into pieces. You could use these as a core for a bead that you want to apply something to. The one unfortunate thing about doing this is that it's a bit of a mess and a pain to clean up. This is my core thingy after I took it out of the extruder. The best tool I found was to use like a small knitting needle, and that will kind of give you a head start. Poke through those holes in the back that the clay went through, and you can sort of peel it out that way. All right, that is the neatest any of these came out for me. They usually took quite a bit of digging, and then just give it a good clean with a wet wipe and you're ready for next time. So it's a little bit messier, I've noticed, just because of the way it's set up, than cleaning up after a regular extrusion. But that's okay because you get really cool effects. So just to show you some of the things that are possible, this one is this disc, 2.5 millimeter circle. Let me pop these out for you, with the 1 millimeter adapter. And it's really easy to test these before you extrude. You could just pop the disc right over the adapter and see if it will fit. This is fantastic for making a cord. Now here's one that I made earlier and baked. And what's fantastic is that if you bake it plenty long, look at what you can do. You can tie that into a knot. You know how Buna cord is popular, and I made mine in black because it suited my project, but you could do it in any colors. What about pearl or some of the metallics? And then you would have jewelry cord in any size and colors you want. Now this one is interesting. This is the 2 millimeter core, which would be this one, with this die, which is a 6 millimeter. I called it a triple clover. I don't know. It's probably got a better name than that. But again, I just tested it, made sure there was enough clay all around. For making a nice clean cut on these, I'm using my flexible blade, not because it's flexible, but because it's very thin. And I'm going to kind of go forward and kind of do that rocking motion so that you get a nice clean cut. Now, this is interesting. The cross section is cool, but watch what you can do. Oh, look at that. You can twist it, and now you've got twisted ropes. In fact, here's one I did earlier and baked. It didn't want to stay flat. I sacrificed some of the ends and smooshed them down to my surface to make them stay. And then you can trim those later. This one is a 7 millimeter hexagon, and I used the 4 millimeter core. I probably could have gone with the bigger one too, depending on what it is that you want to do with it. So what about one of these things that has a side? What if we were to color just some of the sides, which is easy with this hexagon that's got this flat side. Of course, you could use anything. I just grabbed some mica powder because it was easy to demonstrate. So I just applied mica powder to 2 opposite sides, and oh, look at that. Oh, consider the possibilities. So much fun. It kind of looks like a wrought iron railing. Here's one without any colorant. And the one I showed you coming through the extruder, there it is. One thing I noticed was that it tends to float a little in the shape. It wasn't always perfectly centered in the extrusion, and I haven't used it enough to know if there's a trick to that or if that's just the way it is. But one thing I was thinking would be fun is to make little washers or big washers. Use the biggest extrusion you've got. And now you've got these shapes all made. Are you starting to get ideas? Oh, look, black olives. It's just one of those things. It's a tool that opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for you. Here's a little bonus for you. Several of you asked me when I showed the knitting. I showed how to use the Wonder Knitter to make jewelry cord, and I was making one for this pendant, and I was asked to please be sure to show the finished product. Well, this is what I came up with for this pendant. It's a beautiful knitted cord. I love the colors. I love the textures. I don't love them together. I really like this pendant that Seana Bettencourt made. I think it's beautiful and elegant, and I think this cord detracts from it. I decided I wanted to go more simply. That was what got me started on making these. Oh, by the way, these can break. So if you tie them in a knot and then pull too hard, they will break. But you can do a lot with them. I mean, that's pretty amazing for polymer clay. And this baked for a long time. I I think I baked it for an hour and a half to make it as strong as I possibly could. Also, speaking of flexible polymer clay, I mentioned somebody was knitting polymer clay. I put this in the comments of that video. It was Marie Segal, and what she did, or Segal, I'm sorry, Marie, but what she did was mixed a great deal of a softer clay, like the stuff that you would use to make a mold, with just a little bit of solid polymer clay, and made very flexible strands. And yes, she actually knitted an entire coat with them, which is kind of amazing. So this is just straight Primo black. So yeah, it snaps. But think about what you can use these for. They're basically tube beads. So you can cut those pieces that I had before into pieces and make tube beads. What I did was made a bunch of these to string this as a necklace. I was thinking an odd number, like 3 would be good. Or actually, I was picturing a bunch like 5, but I think you'd need thinner cord to do that. What I ended up deciding on was just 2. And I strung into it some, actually this worked out well. This is some bead stringing wire that I never use in jewelry because it's 7-strand, which I dislike, and it's super thick. So it's just really stiff. I think I've used it more in craft projects like whiskers than I have for jewelry. But it was awesome for this because it was black, and the stiffness didn't matter because these cords are going to be pretty stiff. But these are polymer clay. Isn't that amazing? And I wanted to keep it very, very simple to accent this pendant. Some silver-plated cubes and just a couple of round crimp covers echoing the circles and square in this piece. And isn't that an elegant finish? So I hope that this has opened up your mind to a whole bunch of new possibilities for ways that you can use core adapters and an extruder to make really cool things with your polymer clay. I would love to hear your ideas. Please share them in the comments because we can all learn from each other. If you're interested in the supplies I used, as always, click on the eye in the upper right or in the description box to go to my blog post where I always have a complete supply list and links to products. Happy creating. Bye-bye.